Welcome to Off the Record News. I'm your host, Diana Longry. Thank you for tuning in. Off the Record News is brought to you from the SCC studios out of White Bear Lake. So today, of course, our program is February 8th, 2012. So we encourage you to call in with any questions or comments that you may have either for myself or my guest this evening. However, if you're watching this on a date other than February 8th, well, I'm sorry, we're not here. You won't be able to call in. But you can always get a hold of me on Facebook or give me a jingle. I'm in the phone book. Now, our program also rebroadcasts on Monday evenings, 8 o'clock in the St. Paul viewing area, SPNN. So for those viewers in the St. Paul area, I welcome you when you watch us on Monday. And for those of you who watch us in the Town Square viewing area out of Inver Grove Heights, serving West St. Paul, South St. Paul, Mendota Heights, and Inver Grove Heights, well, I welcome you when you turn on the program Thursdays at 7. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about our Latino neighbors. And I have a friend with me that I've, a newly discovered friend that we were at the St. Paul Chamber event, and we started talking about some of the issues facing the Latino neighbors in our community and in the metro area, and we found, gee, this sounds like a great show topic to bring to our viewers and talk more about what are some of the concerns, what are some of the challenges that are facing the Latino folks that are in our community. So with that, I want to welcome my guest, David Martinez. So with that, thank you so much, David, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So share a little bit of your background with the viewers.
So my story is not unique. I've learned that through conversations with many of my friends and community members. I moved to the United States when I was 7. My mother and father separated. We are from Puerto Rico originally. So I arrived with my mother and 2 younger brothers, and I immediately went into an ELL program, or what at the time it was ESL, English as a Second Language. And I was in 3rd grade, learned English in 3rd grade, and then was integrated into the regular classes. Grew up on the west side of St. Paul, went to South St. Paul High School, went on to the University of Minnesota, and I'm currently finishing an MBA at Bethel University near Roseville. And I live in the Midway area with my wife and 2 young children, and we're in our 30s now, and we're starting to get involved in the community and giving back, and myself, because I received a lot of assistance when I was coming up through the elementary school system, high school, and even college. So now I'm very involved serving the St. Paul School District, and yeah, just calling Minnesota home, and glad to be here to talk about some of these issues that we have on the agenda.
Yes, and you know, one of the things when we were discussing earlier that really struck me is that, you know, you came to this country, there obviously there was the American dream in your heart, even though you were little.
Right.
You know, it was new, it was different, but through all of it, you have a great appreciation for the importance of education for our young people. And so here you are today. You are actually in the business world. You're a business person, and yet you have this other love in your heart, and that's education. And we were talking about the importance of having a good education for our young people so that they can indeed live the American dream, so to speak.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, education has changed my life. I grew up in a community where education, a lot of the adults didn't have even high school degrees. Maybe a few, 2, 3 had gone on to college. And I grew just coming up through the school system, all of my friends, their parents had gone on to college, and they had ambitions and goals of going to college. So I started inquiring, I guess, what does this mean, college, and why, and what will it do for me? And I quickly learned the value of education when I graduated from the University of Minnesota and got my first job with benefits. You know, that was foreign to my mom and a lot of the adults in my community. From there, I went on to graduate school, and that opened up more opportunities within the business world. And it also makes me, it helps me and others make more informed decisions because you're educating yourself. So you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in education, it's not a guarantee that there's going to be opportunity,
Right. No.
but it's the stepping stone that is so critical to having and finding opportunity.
Right.
And I know that from my own perspective, I found that to be true as well, because I grew up poor, and this idea of going to college, well, that was the big dream, was to go to college.
Right.
But I was the first person in my family to go to four-year college, to get a degree, and then later on go and get another professional degree. So that's a big stepping stone, I think, in any family, and it helps to set a an example for the other folks who are around you that it can be done, and that there is that opportunity available.
Right, and that's all we can really do is try to be a good example for our community. I have 5 younger brothers and sisters, so I took on the burden. I said I need to be the example, and there were a lot of challenges along the way. Some of my younger siblings followed me, others did not, and that's okay. All we can do is try our best. But you and I share that in common, that we're the first in our families to graduate from college. And I think in our community, the Latino community, the Achilles heel is education. All of the folks, all of the Latino representatives that have been elected to either the House or the Senate or school boards, they know that that is like the #1 issue. If we can start addressing that and getting the graduation rate up from 50% to 60%, 70%, that will really help the community.
Yeah, when you were sharing that statistic with me that about approximately 45% of the Latino children who are in high school do not graduate, do not get their diploma, I find that absolutely astounding. And yet it makes you wonder, what are some of the reasons why this is happening? You know, is it because there's the pressures within the family that they need to go get a job to help, you know, make ends meet, or is it just because they feel like they're not really being, their needs aren't being met, or exactly what is it?
Well, there are a lot of theories out there. What I can say is what I experienced, and you can probably relate to some of this. It's more socioeconomic than ethnicity. When you're a young person coming up through elementary school or high school, and you know you don't have nice clothes, or you have the reduced lunch tickets, or your family doesn't have a car to get to school, you know, all of those things, and then your parents, you see them struggling, and then you have maybe sometimes domestic violence at home, drug use, things like that. All of those things are real that these kids have to navigate through, and it's tough enough just going to school, getting up at 6 in the morning, either getting on the bus or walking to school, especially in wintertime. And I think sometimes we just have to step back and think, wow, okay, so these kids have all of this stuff that is on their shoulders, and sometimes I think we fail to recognize that, and we so when we sit down and we talk about let's legislate and let's try and create opportunities or make it easier, grants or any type of program that will encourage them, just letting them know, hey, we're behind you. We're here to support you. We understand all of the challenges and the kind of heavy burden that's on you. I think sometimes we lose sight of that, and we end up making it more difficult for the kids, right?
Right, and there is something to be said about having various different programs available, but not really thinking about what is the emotional or the social economic situations that the kids are going through. Because you mentioned something about going to school and not having, you know, the most up-to-date clothes, or having those reduced meal tickets. And I think back to when I was a kid. I can identify with that absolutely, because you feel somewhat shameful that you have the reduced meal ticket.
Right.
And you have to kind of deal with that and try to overcome that and still have good self-esteem and figure out, where do you fit in all of this? And you can have all the programs in the world, but if you can't help kids to also see that there's hope beyond just having to feel shameful that they've got that reduced meal ticket, I think that's part of where the key is. And I know one of the things that I see a distinction many times for students, the ones who succeed and the ones who don't succeed, is that whole element of hope, that they have hope for something beyond what they're doing today. That once they get through this, and if they're successful at getting through this, there is hope that there's going to be something better and brighter tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. The most difficult thing for me, I remember, is just that kind of delaying the gratification, the getting a job, the buying a car.
Yes.
I think an important message that's being lost is that the young people in the community need to understand that they only have to make it through, I don't know, 20 years of education and getting prepared, and then they've got the rest of their life to really do something.
And that there's meaning to doing the best you can while you're in school and getting that education and doing the best you can, because that really is the foundation for having a better, brighter tomorrow, and possibly having greater opportunities than you can even imagine what they might be.
It's just so tough because you go to your friend's house and you're surrounded by a different culture, and you go to your friend's house and you see things are so different. Just the family structure, they have 2 functioning vehicles, you know, they have their own home, they have a yard, and the immediate
TV
thought
in every
is,
room.
the immediate thought is, I need to get all this stuff.
Yes.
So, and I can't wait. I need to go work and do it, and I need to take control. But really, they're taking control by focusing on the education and putting in that time, and again, delaying the gratification of the home purchase or the new car purchase. So there's a lot to think about that I don't think everybody really understands, and that's partly why we're here, just to talk about some of those things.
Exactly. And of course, now since you have this passion for education, you mentioned that you were on the Citizens Financial Committee.
The budget,
and talk about that, being on that budget committee, and you know, some of what you discovered, and you know, kind of, because we talked a little bit about how when you first got on there, you had some ideas and you were thinking about how it is in the business world, but then finding out that really it's a little bit different creature than that, and yet you can still apply, you know, some of your analytical thought to the process, but it is a different creature. So talk a little bit about your experience on that board.
Yeah, so it was 2009, 2010. I was encouraged to apply and serve on the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee for the St. Paul Public School District. And just with my education and now my MBA and my 10 years of business background, I thought, yeah, this makes sense. And I went in there with my ideas, and I wasn't short of ideas. I gave them a lot of ideas, but the finance chair for the school district then had to sit down with us and me specifically and say, you know, this is the way the accounting works, and these are the different buckets, or people call them silos, for all of the money that the schools get. And the money can't be moved around like you and I can move around our personal dollars, and even in corporate America you have more flexibility, I feel, than you do in the school district. So there are a lot of unique kind of accounting and the way the money can be used, so specific rules to school districts. And I think we were talking about this before we went on the air, that it's easy to criticize as an outsider. You think, well, why can't they figure it out? They're asking me for more money, the school districts are. They're getting more money from the government, and they're laying teachers off. So where's the money going? Why can't they figure it out? Well, you get in there, and you're now serving on the Budget and Finance Committee, and you realize, wow, okay, this is why, because it's a really big issue, and it's not just dollars, it's student mobility, it's the achievement, it's tenure teacher contracts, retirement of benefits for the teachers. So it's a whole gamut of things that you have to think about, and no matter what you do, you will impact somebody negatively. So if you take away the benefits from the teachers, or you put in a different kind of performance evaluation for the teachers, or anything else that you do, anywhere where you cut, it's kind of like a spider web. You pull this string and everything else moves. So it's very complicated, and I have a newfound respect for everyone, from the superintendent to all of the administrative staff at the school district, the teachers, and even the parent and community volunteers. It's
and with this budget committee, then, because I remember that they issued then a report, correct, on different recommendations, correct?
Right.
Can you summarize what some of those recommendations were?
Oh, what did we talk about? We talked about closing schools, shuttering schools. At the time, enrollment was down, so we had schools that had 50%, 40% capacity, and you're basically operating this big building, heating it, staffing it, and you are at half capacity. So one of the recommendations was, let's start looking at consolidating schools, closing schools down, eliminating some of those operating costs. And then transportation was another big cost.
So, I remember that.
How far do we change the 2-mile rule? Why are charter schools getting buses? And, so there were all these considerations, I guess, that were at the table, and those were two that really stick out for me. We had five that we submitted. Technology was another big one. Just the adoption, or the way the school district is leveraging technology or investing in technology. Some schools you walk into and now everybody has an Apple or a Mac, right, computer, and you start thinking, okay, now they're talking about iPads for all the students. So you have to evaluate that carefully, because we need technology in the schools, but do we go with the Dells that are half the cost of the Macs? And then you have to think about, from an IT perspective, how do we ensure that this whole system works? If we've got Dells over here and Macs, so they
don't communicate well with each other.
Yeah, right.
I can tell you that firsthand.
And you have to, push out a new patch or a virus, and you've got different computer systems. So it was interesting to be behind the scenes.
And then there's also, of course, that public policy issue about whether or not then if students will look at the technology as a crutch and as a substitution for actually knowing and understanding how to do the analytical thought themselves.
Right.
And that's always one of those debates that's, in the education circles, because yes, you do need technology, and our students need to know how to use it, but they also need to know how to use their first computer, which is their brain.
Right.
So I remember some of those discussions that were being had a few years back, that when the recommendations came out from the Budget Committee and the Citizens Committee there, and and those are tough recommendations, because like you said, if you're talking about consolidating schools because of capacity and what your number of students are, well, then you're always going to have a larger community discussion about, well, this is our neighborhood school. How can you close our neighborhood school, because it's close to our home. This is where all of our kids, they know each other. This is where they go. This is our community. How can you shut the school? And yet, on the other hand, is it running as effectively and efficiently? Right. Is it really administering the education that the students need? I know from my own perspective, being when I was young, I grew up in the country. My school bus ride was an hour long just to get to town to get to school. And there's a lot that goes on in an hour bus ride. Some of it not so good. Like the kids in the back of the bus all fighting because they're rival families who live on the other side of the lake. That's a story in and of itself. But again, you know, where's your neighborhood connection? I mean, people feel a connection to their neighborhood school.
That's difficult. The loyalty that people have to their schools. I have firsthand experience with that. My kids are not in school yet. They will be in a year or two. And the school where I learned English was closed. It was one of the schools that was closed. And while it wasn't it wasn't my neighborhood school, I have a lot of memories. And that school did a lot for me.
Yes.
I mean, it gave me the English language, right? And I have volunteered at that school. And I grew up on the west side. It was a west side. It was Roosevelt Elementary. So when I heard that it was closing, I paid a little bit of attention as to why it was happening and could anything be done to save it. But at the end of the day, at this time, I was also getting involved in the school district. I also understood why it was being done. And I think that's what we need to do as, you know, taxpayers, citizens, community members, is sit back and think, okay, make informed decisions. I, as a citizen, I need to understand the reasons why this is being done, and not think about what the school has done for me or for my kids, but what the school and the school district will be doing for the next generation. It needs to change. We need to change in order to improve. We can't keep things the same. So.
Well, and two things that you've mentioned that I really want us to talk a little bit more about. One is this idea about looking to the future, and that when you're making these decisions, these public policy decisions, that you're looking to the future and looking at the trends and the demographics, and where do you see that your community is going, because that is so important in looking at who you're serving, what types of population you're going to have, what is going to be the breakdown of that population, and even what kind of jobs that you see are going to be coming down the pike for your community. This is one of the biggest challenges I see for the metro area, is that we have fewer and fewer manufacturing jobs where basically you know, general labor is, as long as you got a good healthy back, that you're employed. That market is really changing. It's changing throughout the country, but certainly here in the metro, that's something I think that we need to plan for. So what are those jobs going to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years, and are our students going to be prepared to go into those jobs? And if they don't have the education, they're not going to be prepared.
Absolutely. Businesses are looking at this as well, the changing demographic. I had a chance to hear Tom Gillespie. He's a state demographer. I think he's retiring or is now retired, but I heard him give a presentation about the changing demographics in Minnesota, and he gave specific attention to the Latino community in Minnesota. That community has grown, I think, 95% in the last 10 years.
That's incredible.
The community is, if the entire Latino community came together, they would be the third largest city in Minnesota, behind Minneapolis and St. Paul, at like 240,000 individuals. So the increase there in the school district, St. Paul, I know for sure, Minneapolis and some others have a high percentage of Latino or just diverse, period, student body. I think it's 60% or more are diverse, the students. That is very different than when I was in school, and that wasn't that long ago. It was a while ago, but not that long ago. So it's something that businesses are looking at. These are going to be our customers, our consumers. If we are going to sell them homes, cars, etc., we need to be able to understand them, market to them, and then help them succeed as well. Make sure that they're financially capable, or just capable in general, of understanding our products and understanding how we can help them. And the schools are struggling with, okay, how do we prepare the students to go work at these companies and to be good consumers so we can keep these companies here. Minnesota has I don't know, 15, 20 Fortune